Hey folks, it's JC from One Shot Adventures, and this channel's all about running, well, great one-shot adventures, but also short campaigns. And what a challenge it is for GMs to pick an adventure to kickstart a brand new fantasy campaign. There are just so many options out there. Do you go for something open-ended so that you and your players have hours and hours of adventure ahead? Do you choose something more subversive, perhaps an adventure that takes your players' expectations of fighting rats and goblins at first level and flips them on their head? Or do you go for something punchy, an adventure that hooks your players fast, gets them rolling dice right away, and then you figure out the longer campaign later? None of these solutions are wrong. I've done them all, and generally I don't find that one particular approach is any better than the others. The most important part of picking a first level adventure for your players is to find a really fun one that speaks to you and your group, one that doesn't waste any time in making your players feel like heroes. The more they enjoy that first adventure, the more likely it is that your campaign will last. And so today I'm going to review one of those adventures that you can kickstart a campaign with, Tower of the Black Pearl, a level 1 dungeon for Dungeon Crawl Classics that is pretty much designed to kickstart any campaign in almost any setting. It sends your players out into the sea, where a tower of a long-dead wicked wizard has risen above the waves. And inside the tower, the fabled Black Pearl, an artifact rumored to bring doom upon all those heroes who have dared to possess it. Towers, dead wizards, powerful artifacts, all classic fantasy tropes. But is Tower of the Black Pearl strong enough to kickstart a brand new Dungeon Crawl Classics campaign? Does it offer more than those traditional fantasy tropes everybody's played before? Well, go fetch your rowboat and let's meet at the tower at midnight, because not only am I going to give you a full review of Tower of the Black Pearl, I'm going to give you GMs some tips and tricks on how to run this adventure like a pro. Tower of the Black Pearl is written by Dungeon Crawl Classics veteran Harley Stroh. It can be found in a standalone version, there's actually a couple, or in the Tome of Adventure number 7, which compiles 8 different DCC adventures together. I would recommend that version. The adventure itself is only about 12 pages, and you can easily fit it into a single short session. You'll actually often see this adventure pop up at conventions for that very reason. It's designed for first level characters and is very easy to plug into a campaign after you've just run a funnel. You just need your players to be near the water. And that's because the setup of the adventure features a tower rising from the water. This tower is said to have been built by the mighty, chaotic sorcerer Sezrakon, designed to hold his corpse when his spirit form crossed into other dimensions and universes. But if you're not setting your adventure in the standard DCC world, it's very easy to replace Sezrakon with your choice of a powerful, near-immortal lord. The tower only rises above the waves and is accessible every 10 years, and even then, only 8 hours at a time. But it is famous because it is said to hold the Black Pearl, a fabled artifact that, well, the adventure doesn't really say what the Black Pearl does, at least in the beginning. It describes a little bit more later on. So I recommend you add a little lore. You tell your players that not only is this pearl worth a fortune, but it's an artifact that all wizard and warrior kings have long sought because it's said to keep them on their thrones longer. This will hook them a little better. But like all hidden artifacts, those who have sought the pearl have met their doom in the tower, either drowning or never being heard from again. So the tower has appeared, and the PCs are the brave fools that find out about it and can venture into it to try to claim the pearl for themselves. But they won't be the only ones seeking the pearl, because a notorious and bloodthirsty pirate, Savage Quen, has handpicked his best men, and he plans on claiming the pearl as well this night. The adventure begins with the PCs rowing out to the tower. Its top has just popped above the waves, which means that they'll be exploring the tower sort of backwards, starting at the top and then working their way down. Right away, the PCs will discover some of those pirates have beaten them to the tower. and they'll have to fight off a few drowsy scoundrels who are guarding the top of the tower before entering the tower itself. I like that this isn't just an exploration-focused adventure, but it feels like a race. The players have exactly 8 hours before the tower plunges back into the water again, and there's already a band of pirates led by a scary legendary one who's already ahead of them. A clear objective and urgency are just fantastic ways to start any adventure, and this one does that. The tower is very linear. I'll just get that right out of the way. It's 5 levels counting the top, and then the bottom opens up a little bit more into a wider underground area. But there's not much open-ended exploration to be done here. Players will enter the tower, head downwards, try to seize the treasure, and then escape. It's a gauntlet with some really cool set pieces, but groups expecting a lot of exploration with a lot of choices will probably be a little disappointed. This adventure is not Keep on the Borderlands with its vast series of tunnels, or even the Lost Citadel of the Scarlet Minotaur, the starting adventure for Shadow Dark. This is a straight-up Disney ride, but what a ride it is. Right away, in the very first room of this tower, there's a hall lit by hundreds of candles, surrounded by murals of heroes with a pedestal holding an old book of names in the middle. Sazra Khan, you see, was once a lord of goodness, before he fell and turned chaotic and evil. This room is clearly glorifying all the heroes that he must have mentored in his earlier career. But in a horrifying twist, players discover that each candle in this room corresponds to a heroic living mortal somewhere in the world. The book associates the names with the candles, and if a candle is ever extinguished, well, that hero just instantly dies.
Arise! Arise, fair riders! Today spears shall be shaken, shields shall be splintered, but we ride. We ride for...
What can I say about this? This room is the type of thing that Dungeon Crawl Classics does best. While other RPGs might throw goblins at a first level PC, Harley Stroh gives them the ability to literally change the world from their very first encounter. When I ran this adventure, about half the room's candles were wiped out by a bucket of water a player had brought with him. He thought that they were some kind of evil trap. It was a disaster. It resulted in the deaths of half the heroes in the world. And a dark lord started rising to start conquering now what was undefended. That one scene alone gave me a fantastic way to kickstart the rest of the campaign. The other tower levels have a real mix of encounters. There are animated fetish statues that come to life and attack the players. There's a puzzle room, which requires players to sacrifice their blood in order to figure out how to open up various portals, one of which will eventually lead to the final chamber in the tower once they find the key to it. I really like that it's not all fighting in the tower. Each room is really unique, but yes, there are wandering monster tables, so if you ever want to surprise your players with a good old-fashioned fight, the adventure gives you the tools to do that. When the players reach the base of the tower, they'll find themselves in a flooded cave below the tower. This cave is a little bit more open-ended than the tower itself, as it requires the players to navigate between a handful of areas before figuring out how to unlock the final room. There's a skeletal boatman that ferries people around this room in this underground lake. Kind of imagine Charon from Greek mythology, and he'll silently guide the players around the chamber for a small fee. He's creepy and cool and mysterious. I like that he's there. But more importantly, there's a couple of band of pirates at the bottom who at this point realize that they're being followed, and they have no problem ambushing players who aren't being careful. While the pirates individually aren't especially powerful, there's enough of them and the players are only level 1, so a good hit from a pirate cutlass can very possibly kill a careless hero. The players have to use good tactics down here, or it's possible they'll get overwhelmed. Savage Quen himself is also lost down here in these caves, trying to find the pearl. The adventure suggests that Savage Quen is a charismatic fellow, and boy do I use this when I run the adventure. When the PCs finally find him, I don't just have him attack the players with his band of pirates. I roleplay him like a friendly man with a sob story. I have him explain that he's old, that he only wants to do one more job, and then use the money he finds to retire. He even offers to generously split all the treasure with the PCs, saying he only needs enough to build a quiet cottage on a faraway island. Now, your players probably won't believe him, but that's okay. He's a pirate, and of course he's lying to the PCs and planning to betray and kill them later.
Excuse me, are you implying that pirates can't be trustworthy, and that maybe I won't share the pearl when we find it? Well, that's just not true, and frankly I find it rather offensive.
But I like where he's positioned because by the time the players meet him, they're probably wounded. Savage Quen has a lot of men, and he himself is pretty tough. He possesses a magical sentient rapier that deals bleeding wounds and can track down treasures. So your players will probably have no choice but to go along with him at first and join forces knowing that he's probably untrustworthy. At least that's what happened every single time I've run this adventure. Everyone wants to be friends with a pirate, even though they know exactly how that will turn out.
Oh, you're doing it again. You're implying pirates can't be on the up and up. And frankly, it's making me a little mad. In fact, I've killed men for worse.
Eventually, the PCs will find the remains of Caesar Khan, the body of the man who ascended and became something more. In his sarcophagus are 2 rubies, which unlock that portal up above in the tower that will teleport the PCs to the Shrine of the Black Pearl. Now, this final room's description is a little hard to parse, so let me try to do it better. The portal opens onto a wide stone platform in a rectangular room lit by 2 burning torches. Steep steps lead down into a flooded chamber where 30 feet away, a rearing dragon statue holds the massive black pearl in its jaws, untouched, weirdly, by the surrounding water. Below, the dark pool of water churns with hundreds of writhing black snakes. To get the pearl, a brave soul has to go down the steps, into the water, swim across, grab the pearl, and swim back. But that will let them get attacked by dozens of those tiny sea snakes, which, while they only do a point of damage each, they're all venomous, and all it takes is a few hits, and PC's stamina will be drained to 0, no doubt leaving them drowned. The adventure largely lets the players figure out their own way across. I do wish that there were a few more suggestions here for the GM on how the players might get across, especially since these are level 1 characters who don't have a lot of access to special abilities or spells, and honestly, this is the kind of adventure I could see a new GM running, and he may need some hints to communicate to his players. Obviously, the first plan your players will come up with is to suggest that the thieves scale across the walls, perhaps using pitons to try to get across, and that's a classic, so that could actually work.
Oi, don't worry boys, I've never failed a climb sheer surfaces test in my entire first level life.
Oh! The best solution I've seen is one of my players went down into the cave and pushed that skeletal boatman into the water from behind and stole his little boat, and they used that to cross the room. The boatman wasn't happy about that later, and I got to bring him back later really mad, but I thought that was a really fun solution. Once the players grab the pearl, the entire tower starts to flood. The players have to race out of the tower lest they drown or get attacked by all those sea snakes. There's not really rules suggested how to handle the escape. The adventure just gives them 13 turns to basically make their way out. So to increase the pressure here, this is where I have Savage Quen and his pirates block the exit, demanding that the players trade the pearl for their lives. A combat will ensue, which will tick down those critical 13 rounds before the tower floods, which does a great job increasing the pressure. And if your players have already defeated Savage Quen, you have 2 options. One, you can always have a small band of surviving pirates, perhaps led by a fun pirate lieutenant, decide to make a go at the Black Pearl. Or you can just grab one of those wandering monsters included in the table in the book. Some animated stone fetishes may block the stairs, or maybe they're even led by that skeletal boatman if the player stole his boat, just trying to wrestle the players back downwards into the water. After all, they can't be harmed by it. Basically, my advice here is to make sure you have one last epic fight before the tower fully floods to really put the pressure on the players. As a treasure, the pearl is a wonderfully mixed bag. You can sell it, it's worth 500 gold, which is pretty decent, but more importantly, anyone who possesses it gets a +1 bonus to saves, armor class, attack rolls, and even lets casters cast spells at 1 level higher, which is actually a pretty huge bonus. And if that sounds powerful for a first level treasure, well, it is. But like all things with DCC, this comes with a price. Wandering monsters appear 3 times as much, and random powerful evil creatures are drawn to the owner wanting to seize the pearl for themselves. So it's up to your players. They have a really good choice right away whether they try to hold on to it or they just get rid of it and sell it. And that's Tower of the Black Pearl. So what do I think? I think for a lot of people, the quality of this adventure will depend on how much you like or don't like linear adventures. Like I said at the top, this is generally a one room at a time adventure, with the exception of that cave, which opens it up a little bit. Personally, when an adventure is short, I've run this one in as little as 2 hours, I find my players don't mind linearity as much. Their agency is what they do in each room, not whether they go right or left in a dungeon. But I'll admit right away, that may not be for everyone. The mix of encounters here, though, is great. I always say that a great dungeon adventure needs 4 qualities. They need a variety of encounters, not just fighting, which this one brings. There's combats, but there's also traps, role-playing, NPCs, puzzles, just a little bit of everything. Great dungeons also give the GM flexibility, and the presence of the pirates do exactly that. You can use them to adjust the challenge level, move the players along, or even give hints as to the dungeon if you need that. Great dungeons also tell stories through the environment. I'm not talking about a plot. I'm talking about as the players traverse through the dungeon, do they learn something about its history and the world? And here, while I didn't really focus on it too much earlier, this tower does a great job telling the story about the rise and fall of Sezrekan. You see his goodness in the murals at the top, and then how he got obsessed with extending his life and then sought magic to transform him into something terrible. In just 2 hours, the rise and fall of Sezrekan will be obvious to all your players. And I love when an adventure can do that without really trying. And finally, a great dungeon needs a twist. A single great room or encounter that players will always remember and share stories about it, even among different groups of players who played the game at different times. And for my groups, that first room with the candles is the one. What did they do when they realized that each candle was a hero's life? I bet every group has their own story. And if you do, let me know in the comments below. I'm sure there are some good ones I'd love to hear. So overall, this is a very well-designed adventure, especially if you are looking for something punchy, fast-moving, and something that will hook your players. I do have some other small nitpicks with the adventure. The map is a little bit hard to read, especially because there are portals that kind of teleport the players around at the bottom. So sometimes it's hard to figure out how players get from room to room without reading a bunch of entries to see how they connect. Unfortunately, it is an adventure you have to read carefully before you run it, but at least it's short and just make those little notations on your own map. And if you're going to run this over virtual tabletop, there are some excellent fan-made maps that you can grab. I'll post a link to some of my favorites in the description below, as well as a link to some of the tokens I've made for this adventure. I also wish the enemies here were a little bit more interesting. I like the pirates. I love pirates because I can make them my own. Do what I do and be sure to add a little personality and flair to even the lesser ones. Insert a big mute guy with a hook for a hand, or one with an inexplicable nail sticking out of his head, or one with a monkey tail that is also unexplained, that sort of thing. I wish the animated fetishes were a little bit more interesting. They're barely described, and even then, sometimes they sound like small little toys. I don't know. I replaced them the second time I ran this with gargoyles, stone men that are constantly crying seawater from their eyes, implying that maybe these were Sezrekan's magician assistants who unwillingly got transformed into the tower's guardians. It's kind of creepy, and I think it fits the adventure setting a little bit more. But overall, this is a fun adventure, one that I have a blast running. It has a lot of things that resonate for me, and each time I run it, it feels like a fast-paced, dangerous, and very memorable roller coaster. If you enjoyed this review and want to see more Dungeon Crawl Classics reviews like it, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button to subscribe to this channel. It really helps. And if you played or ran in Tower of the Black Pearl, let me know how it went in the comments below, and I'll try to respond to every one. Until next time, I'm JC, and just remember, if a pirate walks up to you and appears perfectly friendly, you probably don't want to trust him for very long, because he's going to try to kill you.
I told you I'd be getting revenge for talking poorly about pirates. Well, that's the end of the video, folks. Spin up the sea shanties.
10 years gone tower where the black tide flows, 8 hours grace. So the old chart swore, plenty old time till we drown for sure. Just a quick dive, said every fool. Now we're racing death by